In yesterday's class, we understood important 4 steps like connect and collect, transform and enrich, publish and monitor. The next question is, how do we go through those steps what we discussed in yesterday's class? Anyone? Any volunteer?
Different dedicated tools.
Tools, okay.
Yes.
So through the component of data factory.
Okay. So through the components. Awesome. How did this term come to your mind now?
Sir, we are discussing, right? Many components are there in Fabric. One of the
Got you.
component is.
So we make those steps happen through the components. Anna, what are those components?
Pipelines.
Anna said pipelines. Then some
Copy activity.
Copy activity. Okay. Anything else? Let us understand them. There are 4 key components that will make those steps happen. And these 4 key components work together to provide the platform on which you can create the data-driven workflows to move and transform the data. We understood the steps: connect and collect, transform and enrich, publish and monitor. Those steps happen through different components, and we have 4 key components. These 4 key components work together to create the data-driven workflows. Okay, and those components are pipelines. We have activity. We have data sets. We have linked services. These are the important components within data factory. Okay, let us understand them at a high level one by one. What is pipeline, Malini?
Transformations in a row or in a series.
Very good. Transformations in a row or series. Very good thought. Any other thoughts from anyone? Shubhna, go ahead.
These are the components used inside data factory, right, sir?
Correct. You are right.
So connecting and collecting, transform and enrich, publish, monitoring.
No, Shabna. In order to the data factory, what we discussed earlier were the activities, right? 4 steps to create the workflows, right? And these steps will not happen in the air, isn't it? To make these steps work, you have a component. You got it, right?
Yes, sir.
And those components are pipeline. So in order to make those steps happen, we use the components. And again, I'm talking about the components to create the data flows only, Vineet.
Yes, sir.
Both of them are for the same reason. But one is the activity, second thing is a component.
Yes, like if we go by analogy, then to teach, there is a teacher.
Okay, yes.
Like to perform those tasks, like connect and collect, we have a component and another.
Yeah, you are right. More simpler example than that is writing is an activity. You write through pen.
Pen, yes.
Okay. So we discussed about the write earlier. We are discussing about the pen now. Make sense?
Understand, sir.
Okay. Sorry. These 4 components are pipeline, activity, datasets, and linked services. Sequence of some transformation. That is a pipeline. Then now in our group, one guy is very much obsessed with the pipeline. That is Vidit. Okay. What is a pipeline according to you, Vinit?
So it's kind of virtual arrangement of the data flow and those activities.
Okay, I like the way you said. It's kind of virtual arrangement of something. That's good. Okay. More or less you are there. Both of you are there. Malini and Vinit. Okay. Pipeline is a logical grouping of activities that performs a unit of work. What both of you said is also right. If you see whatever you said, that is there in this definition. Okay, but if you have to throw a jargon at someone, it is a logical grouping of the activities that performs a unit of work. Okay, that is a pipeline. Okay, so together the activities in a pipeline perform a task. So when you have activity 1, activity 2, activity 3, they are synced together to perform a task. Okay, together these activities create a pipeline. Okay, when we talk about a project in any big organization where data factory is used, it may have multiple pipelines in their project. I mean, why do we really need to have a pipeline? The reason is, if you don't have a sequence of activities stringed together to perform a unit of task, you have to write a code for each of the activity. Activity can be a transformation or enrichment or collecting the data or connecting to the data source, any one of these. If we don't have the pipeline, it is difficult for us to manage each of the activity individually. So when we are in a data project, you have to connect and collect, you have to transform and enrich, you have to publish, you have to monitor. If you and also within connecting and collecting, it is not one connection, right? You may have to establish the connection to the multiple sources. If you go on managing those activities in isolation without stringing them together, it is a humongous task to manage them. Okay, that is resolved by pipeline. When you group together the similar activities which are planning to perform a particular task, then it will be easy for you. But the way you can do that is, I can sequence them one after another sequentially, or you can also have parallel depending upon what you are trying to accomplish. Okay, this is sequential, both of them together is parallel. That is pipeline. It's very simple. When you sequence, I think as Malini said, what you can do is it cannot be only transformation, it can be multiple things. Right? It can be enrichment, it can be transformation, it can be copy, it can be movement, it can be multiple things. Okay? When we combine them together to perform the task, that is what is pipeline is. Now, what is activity? Anyone?
Maybe a task, sir.
Maybe a task. Okay.
After completion of some preset requirements, a task that gets executed after some.
Okay. So, activity is a processing step in a pipeline. It is another processing step. Can be anything. As I said, movement can be a processing step, not per se processing. Okay. And transformation can be a processing. Okay. Then connecting can be a processing step. Any which is involved in manipulating the data, moving the data, transforming the data, enriching the data can be regarded as an activity. Okay. It is a processing step in a pipeline. Okay. Then we have three types of activities. They are data movement activities. It is simple and straightforward. And then we have data transformation activities. Then we have data control activities. These are the three types of activities. Activity is nothing but processing step in a pipeline. Okay. What is pipeline?
Connecting all the activities together.
Absolutely.
Group of activities.
Very good. Okay. It is a group of activities. Okay. Or one more way of saying it is a logical grouping of activities to perform a task. That is a pipeline. Activity is a processing step. There are three types of activities: data movement activities, data transformation activities, data control activities. So data movement is, as the name suggests, moving the data from one place to another, copying the data from one place to another. All these are data movement activities. Data transformation, we already know, be a data transformation. And concatenating the two names can be a data transformation. Aggregation can be a data transformation. Control activities is about access controls. Okay. Control activities can be like setting a password, okay, and checking the quality of a data in some way. Those can be a control act, like data restricting the data access, data security measures, encryption. All those things can be regarded as a control activities. Okay. Now, what is a data set?
It's a
It's a
collection of
collection.
data
Collection of data. Okay. Any thoughts from anyone?
in the form of, organized way of collection of data.
Collection of related data.
Related data. Good. So data sets represent the data structures within the data stores. Please read in between the lines here. Data sets represent the data structures within the data stores, which simply point to or reference the data you want to use in your activities as inputs or outputs. What does it mean, Malini?
Reference means location, right? So
Correct. Okay. So the moment we say data sets, we'll think about a data, right? In the context of the data factory, what happens is you are having a activity 1, activity 2, activity 3, right? Now, this activity, assume this is moving the data from point A to point B. That is the activity. Okay. Movement of the data from source A to source B. Okay. Now, this activity need to have a, so in the activity, it is called as a data set. So that data set is not the actual data in this activity. It merely points to where the data is there. For example, the data set used here in the activity 1, it is a reference. Okay. So, I mean, you'll be able to get it when you do some hands-on. Data set in a activity array pipeline in a data factory is not the actual data. It points to where the data is. Okay. For example, now you are trying to move the data from, let's say, one workspace, or let us say Azure blob, one lake. Okay. You are trying to move the data from Azure blob to a workspace 1. Okay. In activity 1, you create the data set 1 and data set 2. You're getting me, right? Data factory created data set 1, data set 2. So even though you name it as a Azure blob data set 1 and one lake data set 2, that data will not be there in the data factory. That data will be there in the blob only. That data will be transferred to the or moved to the lake house only. So data sets within the data factory are a simply pointer to where the data is. You'll be able to get it better when you do the hands-on on this. Okay. Now, the last one is something called linked services. What is linked services?
link means connections.
Correct. Okay. So, linked services are connection strings that is required for the data factory to connect to the external resources, right? Makes the connection between the data source. Let us take an example now. We have activity 1 and activity 2. Now, activity 1 moves the data from blob to one lake. Activity 2 performs filtering. Okay, this is the activity. Okay, so you guys have got it. Move the data. Activity 2 is filter. Now, these two activities string together to create a pipeline. So, pipeline is a logical grouping of these two activities to perform a task. Task is moving the data and filtering the data. So, pipeline is clear, activity is clear. Now, two things. Data set. Now, when you want to move the data from blob to one lake, in the data lake, you have to create the data set. Data set, one lake. You have to create those data sets in the data factory. So, but these data sets, are they in the data factory? Actual data, is it there in the data factory? No, it is not. Actual data is there in the blob. So data set what we create here is a blob. Okay. Now these things are established by linked services. I guess you're able to get it, right? So the data set you create here, to make sure that the data set is pointed to a actual data, is done by linked service. Make sense now? Any questions here? Everybody is there with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So data set is a kind of pointer that gives us the snapshot of the data structure that is inside the blob, Azure blob.
Yes. Data set is a kind of a data structure. It
Yes.
doesn't have a data. It holds the pointer to the where exactly the data is. Okay.
It itself is not a pointer.
It
It
holds
holds the pointer.
it holds the pointer to the where the data is there. It itself is not
Yes,
the actual data.
So from the data moves from blob to one lake, then it points to one lake because the
Correct.
actual data.
Depending upon, for example, you have two data sets in this activity: data set blob, data set one lake, right? So this data set points to the data in the blob. This data set points to the data in the one lake. Okay.
Okay.
In this case, what is data factory?
Platform, yeah.
It is a platform or a module within the fabric to make the ETL process easy for us, right?
Yes,
Right. So
Hmm.
the platform, do we have the data in this platform?
No.
We don't have the data in the data factory. So data factory is a platform or a tool to make the movement of the data, to perform the ETL jobs, to do the data integration, all. But data factory itself do not have the data, right? So, but it has to move the data. Then that is the reason. So the data factory do not have the data on its own, but it has to move the
Yes.
data. How will it know the data is there in the blob? For that, you need to have some representation, right? Okay, that representation is data set. But this data set in a data factory will not have the data.
Yeah.
The data, actual data is there in the blob or one lake.
Okay, it is pointing where the data is.
You got it now, right?
Yeah, yes.
So now all the four things are clear. What is pipeline? What is activity? What is data set? And what is linked services? Linked services is that pointing from data set to the where the data is. Okay, it's clear for everybody. So linked services can be used to represent either a data store or a compute resource. So either by using the linked services, you will point to where the data is there, or it is also required to compute resource, the cluster, the where you have to run this activity. Okay, so either it will represent the data store or it will represent the compute resource. Okay, so like when you say data store, it can point to a SQL Server database. It can be a Oracle database. It can be a file. It can be a Azure blob storage. Okay. So linked services points to the data source, means the data source can be, it can be on-premises SQL Server database. It can be Oracle database. It can be file share. It can be Azure blob storage. Okay. So to represent a compute resource, and also compute resource is, as I said, it can be a cluster. It can be something which will compute. Okay. It can be physical resources to make the processing happen. Those are the four important things. Those are the four important components within the data factory. So we can, okay. So when you want to shoot a person, what will you do, Vinith?
Pull the trigger.
Pull the trigger. Okay. In the same way, you have built the pipeline. In order to make the pipeline start working, start processing, you will use the triggers. Triggers make the execution kicked off. You have built the pipeline in order to make sure that that pipeline go through the different activities. You have to trigger the activities in a pipeline. It is also kicked off. Okay, and there are different types of triggers. There is something called schedule trigger based on the schedule, like based on the time. Okay, and there is something called event based trigger. Let us say a file comes and falls in a folder, then that activity should be triggered. Like that, there are different types of trigger. Okay, so after building the pipeline, you have to trigger the pipeline to make that executed. Okay, then we have something called parameters. Any idea what are parameters?
The kind of input, sir.
Absolutely. Okay, so when you are building the pipelines, you have activities. Activities takes the parameters. Okay, so parameters are user defined variables that allow us to pass the values dynamically into pipelines, data flows, and data tasks. Okay, in a way, they will help us to configure the pipeline. They help us to make the pipelines reusable. Okay, so for example, file name is a parameter, path is a parameter, table name is a parameter. Okay, which we provide in the pipelines, data flows, and data tasks. Okay, but what we have to keep in mind is when you are creating the pipelines, avoid hard coding. Coding means, so for example, you are building a pipeline where, let us say, the pipeline will pick the file from a folder and it will move to the, let us say, one lake. Okay, now the folder, if you say the file name is any funny name for the file name, Jujumba file name 1. So next file name is Mogambo 2. Okay, these are the file names. Now, as a part of the pipeline, if you hard code Jujumba, you have to avoid hard coding. Instead of that, you say some star dot text. It can be Jujumba, it can be Mogamba, it can be Dudumba, it can be anything. Okay, are you guys concentrating on Jujumba or Mogambo, or you are concentrating on hard coding? Parveen, you guys understood the concept?
Actually, it is always recommended to make it as a dynamic one instead of static, right, sir?
Absolutely. Okay, hard coding is that only, right? Okay,
Yeah.
and also in a way, as our Parveen said, it enable the dynamic movement of the data and transformation. Okay, so it should happen as and when the things are changing. It should be dynamic. You have to create the pipelines in such a way or provide the parameters in such a way that it should not happen that the pipeline will work only for once. It should happen that the pipeline should continue to work as and when the data is getting created or as and when the data is getting moved and all those things. Okay, see, when you guys see this as a part of the answer, it will be a bit more clearer. Okay, but at a high level, you guys got a picture of what is pipeline, what is activity, what is after activity, what next?
Data set.
Data
What is
sets.
data set? After that, what?
Linked services.
Linked services. Okay, you guys got the. That's all for now. Like and subscribe and turn on notifications for future videos. Thank you.